Come on, guys! Oh no! Come on, SS Jesse, you got this! Pedal fast, pedal fast! Lake Arrowhead is taking control, going around the body. Everybody else coming in.
Hey, Logan, come on!
Look
Yeah, Logan!
They are floating. You got this. Another fish tank coming in a quick second in this heat. We got SS Jesse. She is still afloat. She's got this. We should have gave her a better paddle. You got it. We got the fish in.
Okay. I will call the meeting to order. We have the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ring the doorbell.
Just got done right in the minute.
We heard the doorbell.
All right, now we'll have the roll call.
Okay, Mr. Huffman.
Here.
Mr. Schaefer.
Here.
Ms. Dixon.
Here.
Mr. Good.
Here.
Mr. Sowers.
Here.
Mr. Seward.
Here.
And Ms. Noah.
Here.
Good to see everybody. Are there any items that we need to add or delete from our agenda? And we'll follow the agenda that's been distributed. We have the minutes from our meeting on July the 13th. Any additions or corrections? Motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay. Don't think we have any citizens that signed up to speak. And we don't have any public hearings scheduled for this meeting. So, the first item to consider is the preliminary and final plat from Baker Development Partnership. And this is for the subdivision of 2 parcels into 31 townhouse lots along the proposed Ray Court, and subdivision of parcels, there are 4 of those, into 48 townhouse lots along the proposed Caterpillar Drive in the Luray Landing Planned Neighborhood subdivision. And we are asked to review and provide recommendations to the town council on this preliminary and final plat for this application. You want to speak to the two conditions that are there to be concerned?
Yes, sir. With the proposed location of Ray Court, get to a better view. Okay. Part of the remote parking requirement, which I believe is proposed down here off of College Drive, there's a requirement that the remote parking space be located within 1,200 feet. And due to the nature of Ray Court, as well as Caterpillar with the cul-de-sac here, we just need to make sure that any required off-site parking is located within 1,200 feet of each of those locations. And the second is that the town code requires a minimum of 50 feet for a cul-de-sac, and we just need confirmation from Baker that can be constructed within the proposed plans when they finally get to design plans, but just making sure that the plat information will allow that to occur.
Do you want to speak to those two things?
We're aware of both of them, sir, and racing engineers working on both of them. As far as the parking, will definitely be within the 1,200 foot and the cul-de-sac.
Okay, are there other questions or discussion?
How many townhouses total out there?
Original plan 168, and then add another 31, so 199. And just on this side of the project. So that's, as far as discussions we're having with DR Horton, that's where they're drawing the line there.
You feel comfortable selling that many?
That's a tricky question. That's probably a question for DR Horton. We feel comfortable selling the lots to DR Horton, and then what they do with them after that.
Fair statement.
They may be back in here to change, they may not, I don't know. At this point, that's not the plan. They just opened the model 2 weeks ago, so we'll see how they go with the first phase that's been constructed.
Yeah, I saw that they had an open house and opened the model home. Other questions or discussion? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, just want to let you be aware that one other condition that you might consider, and I've talked to the applicants about this before, we're working through, like Mr. Jenkins said, with Race Engineering on the final construction plans for not only these divisions, but Baker Drive and how that will terminate right now in the middle. So one of the things that you may want to condition is that a final approved construction plans before the town council, takes any action on that. So normally we have that step done, or at least to our joint satisfaction before they make their final decision on yea or nay. So we're actively working through it. We've got some comments in place. They're working on revisions and responses now. So it's be 30 days before the council will evaluate this, so we've got time to do it. But I just want to make you folks aware that we are doing that right now, and they're getting it to us just as fast as we can take a look at it.
Is that something we should include in our motion here this evening?
I would recommend maybe just say, contingent upon final approved construction plans and for these two subdivisions. And I don't foresee any problems. They've addressed pretty much everything, or are planning to address pretty much everything that we brought up. So you might just add that simple statement to the motion, and really a formality, but normally final plans, because they're doing preliminary and final plats at the same time, final approved construction drawings typically come in and are approved before the final plats are, voted on by the council. So because it's a joint submittal this time, in the interest of time, and to expedite things for the client, we're gonna just try to get them done, all at one time.
Well, they submitted originally, do you have the letter taken off the website?
I don't,
On record?
on Ray, I do not.
Because they was originally,
Yeah.
I paid for them once.
Sure, yeah, I have no idea. And that'd be a good question to ask when next week, next Monday, when somebody gets back to work. Yeah, when Tyler gets back. So, I had looked at that before, and they were very similar to this, and,
I mean,
but
nothing's changed.
no, they never submitted them. And I think construction drawing wise, the only thing you'll provide is details on the street itself and storm, which all of that, I believe, was already there. It's just a reiteration of that information and submitting it now that you're actually asking for subdivision. So I think that's all it is, Rodney.
Was the motion is suggested here, when it says recommend conditioned approval, is that what that means, based on?
The two conditions that Steve went over, and then just final plans, those are two parts of the final plan review and approval process. And so
So it's already stated in the
I would
motion,
say
right?
that will cover it. We'd be satisfied with that.
Okay, other discussion? Any other information that we need?
Yes, y'all. Council has any questions?
Okay, then should we proceed with the motion?
I'll make the motion. If necessary, I read the total motion, or?
If you just say what's there, I know, yeah. I can read it for you if you'd like that way.
I recommend we approve as motion is presented.
Second.
Okay, can we have the roll call, please?
Mr. Schaefer,
Yes.
Ms. Dixon,
Yes.
Mr. Good,
Yes.
Mr. Sowers,
Yes.
Mr. Seward,
Yes.
Ms. Noack,
Yes.
and Mr. Huffman.
Yes.
Okay, the other item for discussion this evening, which will come back to us in September, we have a special use permit for a lodging house at 303 Luray Avenue. We have the application, the tax map information, and it's noted that this is in the residential R4 district, and lodging houses are permitted there with a special use permit. The conditions that are listed are those that are in the code standard.
With the exception of number 6.
Oh,
Council
okay.
has requested Planning Commission to consider that for all future short-term rental applications.
Okay. All right, and that condition number 6 is that the special use permit does not transfer or shall not transfer upon the sale of the property. I would assume then that the new owner would have to apply for a special use permit.
Yes,
to
sir.
continue.
Council expressed a concern that with the significant increase in requests for the special use permit for short-term rentals, there is a potential that there would be a decrease in the available housing stock. So in order to allow the Planning Commission and Council to weigh in if there is a continued need for short-term rentals at any of the future properties considered, that there be that additional provision that it does not transfer upon sale of the property.
It would have to come back to us.
Yes, sir. That way, if for any reason there was a shortfall of available housing stock, that the planning commission and council could at least offer a consideration that they may not reconsider the approval of that special use permit.
Dr. D.R. Hurt?
I was gonna say, I think the housing stock's gonna go up.
Okay.
Well, to be honest with you, someone that apparently has purchased or is purchasing one of those townhomes has already inquired about allowing that to be a short-term rental. So you may see a Luray
Increase in this.
landing in the very near future.
You know, when you look on Airbnb or VRBO, now, you see townhouses, wherever the location might be, at the beach or wherever. There's a lot of townhouses that show up as a short-term rental.
And for the most part, what we're seeing, and I believe this application is included, it's owners that are buying effectively a vacation home here in Luray so that they can come visit when they like, but then during the times that they are not here, they have the potential to allow others to stay.
As an aside, I notice it's an electronic signature, so we now allow electronic signatures for zoning apps?
Well, the application actually came in for a business license to operate a short-term rental at this property. And I called the applicant of the business license to let them know that they would need the special use permit. And so I did have verbal contact with them that before they submitted this, so I didn't have any concern that it was not who applied. So I've had some kind of confirmation that they're the actual person.
Okay, other discussion at this time? As we know, then this will be advertised and adjoining property owners will be notified, and this will come back in September. We have the information up here on the derelict buildings and blighted properties.
Yes, sir. Town council has been working towards the development of an ordinance, or a couple of ordinance amendments that would allow the town to have some ability to entice property owners that, for properties where no one is residing, there's no utility provision at the properties, and they've become either blighted or otherwise derelict, to offer them the ability that if they make improvements to those homes, the town can then offer them a tax abatement incentive, effectively whatever. If they make an improvement to the property, then it will lock in the current tax assessed value, so that any improvements they make, the town will not issue them a tax bill on that new improvement. Or if they were to demolish a derelict building, then the town would then offer them a tax credit on the reduction in the property value from the reduced value due to the building being demolished. It also offers us the ability to notify the property owner upon confirmation that council has determined it to be a derelict building or otherwise issues with it, that they have to provide a response to the town within 90 days of how they would remedy whatever situation is out there. It has not been adopted yet. We're still working through some of the issues and concerns, but just wanted to make the planning commission aware of what council is considering. It is code amendments that are located outside of the zoning ordinance, so they don't require any input from the planning commission, but just wanted to keep you all informed of this because it is an issue within the community. Thankfully, it's not a significant issue. We don't have a lot of derelict and vacant buildings, but there's enough that most everybody knows of one or knows someone that lives next to one. So it is very important for council. They're trying to make sure that they develop this in such a way that it is effective to address the issues.
It seems like they pushed back for so long about doing this. I mean, we were advocating this for Luray downtown for years, that we needed some kind of derelict building. I'm glad it's coming to the forefront, but what prompted it all of a sudden?
The state adopted enabling legislation that allowed towns. For the longest time, it was only available to cities and counties. Recently, they decided to include towns in the code, so that gave the town the ability to consider adoption of these ordinances. So, yes, sir, there's been a concern raised for a number of years. Unfortunately, the town, as a Dillon real estate, we did not have the ability to consider these ordinance options. Now that we have, council's trying to make sure that we make use of them.
And wasn't the problem at one time that the town may have had to have had their own building inspector? And this seems to be a little bit different approach.
It is. The previous way, the town could identify a structurally deficient building. However, we either had to have our own code official or we had to have the Page County code official concur. Historically, we weren't able to come to an agreement on any of the buildings that were structurally deficient to the point that they would require either fixing or demolition. The other option that had always been available to the town was that the town could just simply outright purchase the property. Unfortunately, some of the properties that need attention, even through code enforcement, it's been difficult to identify property owners. Either, for the most part, most of the buildings that would fall under the derelict definition are owned by property owners that are located outside of Luray and outside of Virginia. So it complicates trying to communicate with those owners to the importance of trying to improve their properties.
What about the threat of lawsuits back and forth? Is that now a moot point because of the state's action?
Well, unfortunately, I don't know that the town had any option as far as a lawsuit, with the exception if a building had a portion of it that collapsed onto someone else, that they could, then pursue some sort of lawsuit. But unfortunately, the only options that had been available to the town were either to make an offer and purchase a property, or to have the building official declare it as a structurally deficient site.
And you're not afraid of getting sued over this?
Well, and that's part of what council has been talking with the town attorney about. And part of what we're working towards is developing very specific guidelines for staff to identify whether the properties truly reach the level of warranting this type of action, and that allows the council to then say, yes, this is what we adopted, this is why we are identifying your home or your building, and that's why the code allows the town to then proceed with requiring an action plan. It's my understanding, again, what we're looking at is very similar to what has been adopted in some cities previously in Virginia. So there is, there's never, it's never certain in the legal world that you won't get sued.
Yeah, sure.
But there is an established track record as to how to formulate the policies and the process.
When you say staff, who do you mean actually determining this?
Well, the staff through the town manager will identify properties. Then those properties are presented to the town council for their consideration and identification and ultimate approval as a property that the town wants to pursue action through this code amendment.
So it comes through you?
Starts, yes, sir.
Well, that's something so previously, you had to have someone that had code approval, that had training to make this decision.
To make decision that a property
And
was
now-
structurally
and now you
deficient. Now, with
Seems like it'd be more liability, because really, there's not anyone certified to make those type.
Well, again, the criteria are, it's been vacant for 6 months, and we
You know
can.
blight when you see it, right?
We can
Yeah.
do that. Well, and that's, there is a concern of arbitrary. That's why we're trying to
Yeah.
work with the town attorney to identify what the specific criteria are. There's some homes where people want to have vegetation that grows up, ivy and whatnot, to give it a different look. Whereas, so we need to be able to determine which is an intended vegetative growth and which is just an abandoned structure that's overgrown. And that's why we are taking a little more time to make sure that what we adopt is enforceable and can be defended.
So do you know when the council will vote on this?
I do
So
not.
we can be there?
We hope that it'll be within, I'm anticipating it'll be in the next 2 to 3 months. At the last meeting, council asked us to come up with a few examples and then identify, how, basically come up with a draft of this is what the notice would be. If improvements were made, this is the potential financial impact to both the property owner and then the town as far as the abatement reimbursement costs, just so that we can get a better understanding as to what will happen. Council has been working with the town attorney to do a number of what-if scenarios. Part of the most recent discussion was, does our software allow us to track independent assessed values different than what would be coming in from the county? Because the assessed value gets locked in effectively. And each year, every 3 years, there's a new assessed value. And our software is set up that when the assessed values come in, it populates our tax database. So we've got to figure out, okay, logistically, how do we have a couple handful that don't change? So that's one of the questions that we're trying to track down, and there's been a number of what-if scenarios. What happens if somebody sells the property? Does the abatement continue? What happens?
What if they're actually working on their building, but it's still kind of blighted? Is that good faith, or is that?
Well, that's where we don't take action immediately. We notify the property, once council authorizes it, we notify the property owner. We say, based on the criteria, your property has been determined to be either a derelict structure or otherwise that requires attention. And within 90 days, they are to provide the town with a remediation plan. That plan is supposed to identify specifically what actions they plan to take and what timetable they plan to take. If they plan to take, if they come back and say, I'm already working on the inside, you just haven't seen anything, and my plan is that in 3 months I'm gonna start working on the outside, that's fine. But what that does is it gives the town a timetable, a commitment effectively from that property owner. If they fail to meet that commitment, then the town can then take further action. either through a penalty or other actions where we can hire someone to continue or to fulfill whatever improvements they had intended to do, but were, for one reason or other, unable to complete.
Does the town want to be in that business of completing people's property?
That's another question. And that thankfully, that's what council's looking at, is because once we adopt this, we have to be committed to it. And it is a significant commitment by the town, because yes, if we're having to hire contractors to do this or that, it will take time from staff. And so, yes, that council does recognize that while it's a necessary issue to pursue, there are definitely some issues that we need to talk through and be aware of before we take the dive.
I applaud them for doing it, actually. Yeah, thank you.
I do too, yes. And, and I think it's important to point out too that these are not just properties that are like on Main Street that we see all the time, but these are in residential property or side streets that we may not see on a daily basis, but they're there and they look awful. Other questions or discussions on that? Any other updates or items that we need to talk about?
Roundabout continues. The Memorial Drive will start sometime after that. There is an open house for the Luray Meadows Apartments on Friday, August 26th at 11 a.m. And you are all invited to attend.
Will you send us an email?
I can definitely do that.
Great. What was the time again?
11 a.m.
11. Okay, thanks.
Steve, what's going on at the on First Street at the little culvert over there? Do you know anything? I don't know what's going on over there, but I've seen a lot of construction on First. Yeah.
First Street. A little bit of. I'm trying to think.
It's not too far from First Street Apartments. It's that beauty shop that she has in the basement.
Yeah.
Oh, she's
But
putting
it's,
curb, I think.
Is it a
They
curb?
installed
It's a
curb.
curb.
Yeah, they just decided to install curb. It wasn't
Oh, okay.
town.
Oh, all
They
right.
just-
Wasn't it somebody complained that the water, when it rained, backed up or something, and they had to enlarge the culverts or something?
Well, I know
That was a
when
long
they-
time ago.
That was a long time.
That was
Yeah,
a long time ago.
I think they simply opted to put, I don't know if they had parking concerns, but they opted to install the curb and gutter at their home. The town has addressed the stormwater that comes off of that, but I'm not sure that, I don't believe that the installation of the curb was associated with any stormwater issues out there. I think it was just a personal choice of the property owner.
Oh, okay. I just assumed that it was part of that
I did too.
problem,
Yeah.
because they had, you know,
Some issues over there. And the the Civil War Memorial at Domino's and Chamber, what's going on over there? There's
They put in a couple of bollards because unfortunately with some of the truck traffic that was coming through there, they were demolishing the curbs there. Is it,
Well, they just kept running over the wayfinding sign.
Oh,
and the
that's right,
stop
and the
sign.
wayfinding sign.
okay.
Primarily the Domino's delivery 53-foot tractor trailer.
That would do it.
So the bollards are designed to rip the side out of the next time that he runs into the sign. That probably will happen one time.
We don't play.
And then
new driver.
Well, they'll have a new route or a smaller truck.
Or a smaller truck.
What, when is the distillery on Main Street, what is it, Blue Shepherd? When is he gonna open?
He had intended to open in July. I've not heard an updated opening date. As
Oh.
soon as we know, we'll let y'all know, but I'm hoping that it's soon. It was great to see that he put the signs up.
Oh,
So
yeah.
That was a definite positive towards
It
us.
looks very nice.
Yes, but I don't know.
Okay, any other items to bring up for discussion? Okay, our next meeting, I think, is September the 14th. Probably one of our later times that we have our meetings, September 14th. All right, if there's nothing else, then we've completed our agenda, so we are adjourned.